Hello everyone, welcome to my newest video here. I wanted to go over this graphic I put out and make a slightly more concise video kind of explaining the rankings and the decisions that I made in this graphic. I put out a longer video that's about an hour long that if you want some more like in-depth analysis on some of these things, you can check that out. But I kind of wanted to make a much more streamlined version too for the people who are, who don't have like an hour to sit around. So let's just get right into it. So off that here, this is just kind of how I wanted to break down the tiers for these bleed units. You have highest value, obviously. I would just recommend everybody summons on them. Good value, I'd recommend to most people summon on them. Situational value, gonna kind of depend a little bit on your account. It's more like a 50-50. Luxury bleeds are much small, probably like a quarter of the player base. I would recommend. You need to have extra resources, not just anvils, but also just everything to invest in the characters in the luxury bleed section. And then lastly, skips is pretty straightforward. Just don't summon on them. They won't give you any value. I have the key down there, pretty straightforward. Up arrow means they are trending up in value, down arrow trending down. Little star means they need their unique legacy piece. That little T-sphere icon is going to be on a bunch of the firepower and assassins because a lot of them just their legacy piece is not necessarily like required, quote unquote, or it needs really high investment to be better than like a blue star T-sphere. So with that out of the way, let's just get right into the first tier. So at first we have the highest value tier. It's mostly supporters, as I feel like many people paying attention to the meta can kind of guess. Supports, shielders, protectors, whatever. They just dominate the game right now. They have dominated the game since Hippo came out. It's just kind of been that way, and probably will continue to be that way for a while. So a lot of the supports in this game are very strong, but Riddler is definitely the best. He can kind of just do everything. He debuffs, he shields, he heals. He's boosting attack with his legacy piece. He pretty much just does everything. He's definitely he's definitely the most valuable character for anyone to pull on. You don't need AMW like he kind of like some of the like initial takes on him were claiming. He's very plug and play friendly. Just kind of throw him in whatever. He's very great protector. So he's definitely the most valuable champion in the game. And just going forward, sorry, I probably should have mentioned this before I started, but these are ranked in order. So like Riddler is more valuable than Sinestro, and just kind of work your way down. Um, so yeah, Nightwing and Sinestro are both just the top DPS in their category. They don't require specific conditions necessarily. You can kind of just throw them in wherever. Obviously, they'll do better if you build the comp around them, but you don't have to build a comp around them. You can kind of just throw them in wherever you want or wherever you have an extra slot open, and they perform. Usually, 9 times out of 10, they'll do very well. Zatanna is just the best universal buffer in the game. She's a solid Deathstroke counter. She's basically just going to increase your combat cycle score. She's going to be good for kind of disrupting those lower star Deathstrokes if you don't get her too high and like 3v3 and whatnot. Very valuable support. One of the best supports in the game for sure. Arguably, or just the best support in the game, with a caveat that I'll mention later in the video. But yeah, very strong support. Very good to just boost your account and your damage numbers in all content. Swamp Thing is the best plug and play off tank currently. His debuffing and his energy drain. He has the start of fight attack and crit rate debuff. With his legacy piece. He's just very strong right now. The energy drain is really good. He has pretty solid tanking abilities. His damage is like whatever, but that's not his purpose. So very strong character, very plug and play friendly. Again, like Riddler, somebody who I think, and I'm guilty, of course, myself of doing this, but may have been his plug and play viability was undersold at first, and I guess underrealized at first. It wasn't until he started I think until really I started seeing him doing really well with Nightwing that I was like, oh okay, you can kind of just throw him wherever and he's gonna do a ton. Starfire is the only bleed healer in the game currently. She's kind of trending down because two reasons. Batgirl is kind of the main reason you would push Starfire, I feel like, for free to plays is because I would always say, or myself and many other content creators would be like, oh, you have Nightwing, get Starfire. Not really the best advice, kind of looking back at it. Batgirl is definitely just the better support. Starfire kind of struggles to hit Nightwing with her ult because she's one of the only healers in the game with like a limited healing range. So she really struggles to hit anyone on your team that's in the back line. And also with Mythic plus Green Lantern eventually, hopefully coming out, now that he's in the test servers, she is losing her value as the only Mythic plus healer, like the only healer with Mythic plus stats, which gave her a huge boost in just viability. But like now that Green Lantern's here, I would say they're both like on par, honestly. But you're just gonna want to use them in different scenarios. You know, you have your Starfire for your long-term fights, and you have your Green Lantern for your short-term fights. Excuse me, where you need that immediate value from the Green Lantern heal, versus Starfire, who is gonna do better in these long-term fights, where she has time to stack up her damage reduction. Hippo is pretty straightforward. I mean, I think, you know, most people by now are aware of Hippo and what she does and how she's disgusting and really good and kind of was the beginning of the end for most DPS and assassins, especially in the meta. Ever since she came out a couple months ago, maybe even a year ago, it's just kind of been support. The assassins have been really struggling to find, and just physical damage dealers in general have been really struggling to find value in PvP because of her, and then in combination with the rest of the characters that shortly after followed her. So yeah, very strong character. She definitely needs her legacy piece. She has that very nice anti-LOD instant ult tech, but she can also be plugged into LOD perfectly. So just a very good, very versatile protector for your team. Will provide you a ton of value. Constantine here, I mentioned in the other video, I go over it a little bit more. He's probably my most controversial take on here, the fact that he might not even make this highest value tier. My biggest argument for him not making this tier is pretty much just that when you compare him to the other two DPS in this tier, like Sinestro and Nightwing, you need to have he needs Zatanna and Constantine. Constantine needs Zatanna and Swamp Thing. If you're like as in late game PvP, I should say. I'm sorry. In late game PvP, if you're not running Constantine with Zatanna and Swamp Thing, like you're not gonna put him on the team. So like, Sinestro and Sinestro and Nightwing. If you have an empty slot, you can just throw them in with whatever team. But if you throw Constantine into that extra slot and would just like, you know, say like, let's just say like you're running a team, it's just random, but like Riddler, Starfire, Hippo, Zatanna, that's your core or whatever, that's like your 4 teams. You plug either of these two and they do fine. You plug Con and he's going to do significantly worse than these two would. So you definitely kind of need to be running Con with at least the JLD core at this point. But he's still very strong. Definitely very strong. Probably the 4th, maybe 5th strongest DPS in the game right now. But I don't know if I can keep him on the same level as Sinestro and Nightwing this deep into the game's meta. So that's my take on Constantine and why I kind of consider him trending down. But we'll keep an eye on that. You know, I could be a little too harsh on him, but we'll see. Keep an eye on that going forward. All right, moving on to the good value tier. We're going to kick it off with Superboy. I think Superboy is also just really good because his legacy piece is so valuable. And it's like, if you're building a legacy piece, he's also just very strong. Or he's very good, so you might as well just also build him. He's needed for Supergirl to be the best CC unit in the game. He's okay on Titans, not crazy, but that it's just that his legacy piece is so good on any support in the game. It's like, if you have the legacy piece, you might as well just build him too. Is kind of my take on him. Joker, obviously trending down just largely due to CC changes. You know, normally before, the issue with Joker was I really couldn't give many characters extra boosting and extra prop ups on the tier list because of their CC capabilities, simply because Joker was just that much better, and he single-handedly just solved the game mode. Just who can build the team around the best team around the best Joker, that's who wins the game mode. So I'm a very big proponent of these changes. I'm sorry to all the people that 5-redded him with the expectation of using him in combat cycle. He's still a very strong PvP unit. I think people are kind of underselling his PvP value still, especially with Riddler and Freeze now. But yes, he is definitely worse, obviously, in CC. But he still has a day or two where he can be used, and he's not useless. He's definitely still usable, but he's just not the king like he was before, which is definitely fine for a balanced purpose. Hawkgirl, kind of similar to Swamp Thing, where I think she's just very strong at being plugged in as an off tank in pretty much whatever comp. I think, you know, she's just going to be a little teeny bit more niche use case than Swamp Thing, because, you know, Hawkgirl is built around specifically mitigating spiritual damage, whereas Swamp Thing is just kind of everything. But, Hawkgirl and something are kind of very similar in my opinion, where it's like, oh, you have an extra frontline slot that needs somebody who's moderately tanky, but is also going to help the rest of your team tank a little better. You can just throw them in, and she'll do very well. Moving on to Freeze here. I know a lot of people are, Freeze is definitely a disgusting champion. I don't want this to make people think Freeze is like mediocre, because Freeze is definitely the best character in the game at just taking damage and living. My only thing is he's only ever been run with Riddler, and unless you were somebody who managed to get Riddler to red stars on his first bleed, I really, really, really don't think you should be investing in investing in Freeze before your Riddler is done. So Freeze kind of loses a little teeny bit of value at least. And then I also when it just comes to the average player, I don't think a ton of people are going to get value out of a high star Freeze investing in that over anyone in this category. Because Freeze is kind of like the last piece, in my opinion, of a team comp. Because his job is, he's not going to really bring a ton of value to shut. Like, he has the freeze, yes, he can lock down one, maybe two people and just freeze them constantly and piss them off for a little bit. But he is not going to bring that full team utility that, like, basically everyone else in the other tier can. So he's kind of like once you've built everyone else, then you build him, and then he's just that final piece that makes your comp come together, because he can just sit there and he can live. But you'll get much more value out of building everyone else first, is kind of my take on that. And then the last person rounding off this tier is somebody who kind of got his moment to shine now that because of the Joker dethroning. Lobo is a very, very strong plug-and-play sub-DPS, and by that I mean he's not going to be your main damage dealer in PvP, but the chip damage he's doing and the anti-heal he's doing is extremely valuable, and it's going to help your Nightwing, your Sinestro, your Constantine kind of just clean up those kills even easier. I really like him in AMW, ironically. Like, benching Two-Face for Lobo is very fun, because his anti-heal kind of lets Joker start to rack up really quickly. And then when it comes to CC, he's the most consistent single target physical damage dealer for CC. I'll talk about it a little later because he's a little later down on the tier list. But like, Wally is really, really strong on like 2 days, and then like okay the other days. Lobo is like great on any day that's weak to physical. Like, because he can hit multiple targets with his ult. He can, he has the Dolphins just do a stupid amount of damage. So he's a little more consistent in Wally, and he just has way more PvP value than Wally, in my opinion. The amount of investment Wally needs to do much of anything in PvP, you can invest like half of that into Lobo, and you'll still have the resources to invest in like a higher star Sinestro, and you just have a way better comp. You have a more well-rounded comp than trying to run 4 supports to make Wally do anything and then hope that he just nukes the whole team. So I think Lobo is the best firepower in the game right now. Very strong champion. He's getting rerun. I think, he's also the first one on this tier list. The first one on this graphic that I forgot to mention is a high investment, quote unquote. I think that's going to be basically any firepower or assassin. Just assume they're going to be high investment. And then also I think the same goes for any warrior that's focused on dealing damage instead of being like like Hawkgirl and Swamp Thing are like off tank warriors. Then you have like Artemis, Superman, Supergirl, who are like damage dealer, bruiser kind of off tanks. So I would say those bruiser off tanks, the firepowers, and your assassins, those are going to be the 3 units that are most likely going to be high investment. And by high investment, I mean you want to shoot honestly towards like yellow stars for them to be really worth pulling. And then in some cases they're just not worth pulling, which I'll mention later. But yeah, so I think Lobo is kind of the first in that category where he needs the stars. His legacy piece also needs the stars because the res is really mediocre at low stars, but he's definitely better than I think we initially thought upon release. Yeah. All right, so moving on to the situational value tier list. These are going to be kind of your guys who it's like, you could, if you need this niche filled, but you don't have to invest in them as much as some of the later characters. Starting out with Supergirl, the only reason she's even this low is just because of how horrible Superfam is in PvP. There is a chance with a new Supergirl, DCU Supergirl coming out in like a week or two. And then Death Metal Superman should be due in like September, maybe October. There's a chance Superfam comes back, but not for free-to-plays. I would be very shocked if Death Metal Superman or DCU Supergirl are particularly free-to-play friendly. So yeah, that's the biggest thing holding her back, but she is far and away the best CC champion in the game. It is worth noting though that for her to be the best CC unit in the game, you're gonna want a high star crypto. You're gonna want a decently, maybe like at least a purple 1-star Superboy, but you also want his legacy piece like a blue 5 or higher. But once you get her to, when you get her to the yellow 1, you have your crypto where you've just dumped all your, selector shards into, and then you have your purple 1 Superboy with a 5 blue legacy piece. She's a demon. She's absolutely destroying any combat cycle day. She can brute force the days that are even just weak to spiritual sometimes. She's definitely just the best CC champion in the game. She has the most value across all days and is definitely the strongest right now. But unlike Joker, she's not like the de facto best on every single day. So it's like I really like the spot CC is in now. So just worth mentioning, Supergirl largely just, do you care about CC? If you're like a free-to-play trying to summon her, how much do you care about CC? Because honestly, in a lot of servers too, it's not even really worth caring about CC too much because you're not going to score high enough on the rankings to get ranking rewards. So that's kind of up to personal discretion, but her value is 99.9% or 90% CC. Orphan is kind of just, do you have Batfam built? If yes, build her. If no, don't even look at her. She's a niche counter to physical damage, which is like off meta as hell right now. She is really good on like 1 or 2 CC days. I believe it's Dawnbreaker and Merciless, but unfortunately she's just not doing enough elsewhere to where I think she's really worth. She definitely needs that legacy piece, because if she's not dodging and healing off the dodge, she's kind of just doing nothing. But definitely probably the best physical counter in the game. It's just physical damage is so off meta that it's like doesn't really matter. So she's unfortunately going to be like, if you have Batfam, consider her. If you don't, just don't even acknowledge her. Artemis kind of similar in a sense where like if you have Death Metal Wonder Woman, you absolutely should be building her. And if you just really like Artemis, you can do a pretty decent Amazon Titans hybrid. You get like Nightwing Hippo, Donna, Starfire. You have a pretty strong comp there. Problem is she just takes extra damage from Spiritual, which was kind of an asinine decision to make for a unit that released in 2026. So she just gets one shot basically by like Sinestros. Don't even, attempt to throw her against Death Metal Batman. She's just gonna despawn. So unfortunately just not in the best spot because the meta doesn't favor her, so kind of similar to Cass in that sense, but just how it is. And then on the flip side, Martian Manhunter is a very strong Constantine counter, but unfortunately he is really susceptible to physical damage. And you also need to kind of build a team completely around Martian Manhunter for him to be super good. You're gonna need Riddler, you're gonna need Hippo, you're gonna need Starfire, you're gonna need just like you're just gonna need characters to help him live and survive. Because that nerf to his self-heal was was felt definitely by him, and he's kind of struggling without supports now. But his damage ceiling is way higher than it was before. Unfortunately, that kind of just came at his he had really good value just being plugged in as an off tank into random comps, but now you kind of have to build around him at least a little bit. So all right, moving on to the next tier, we have our luxury bleeds. These are pretty straightforward. I'm going to kind of speed through these because I don't have a ton to say about them, because they're all 4 of these kind of are the same thing, but it's like, so okay, you're gonna build these champions if you have extra resources and for a fact you need a niche filled. So Red Hood's niche, you don't want to build Supergirl or invest in Superfan because it's a pay to play, pay to win team, whatever. You don't like Superfan, whatever. He's gonna be your next best AoE physical dealer. Problem is he's not gonna have much value outside of that in PvP. He's pretty good. He's really good for Genesis gathering actually. But like you have like one or two ACN stages and combat cycle. That's like kind of all he does. He is really good in the LOA Realm of Fate, but whatever. Who cares? He just gets so outclassed by Supergirl in like a Red Hood in prime condition with like prime supports is just can't even hold a torch to a Supergirl in prime condition. So unfortunately, if you just have Supergirl and Superboy built, there's kind of no reason to even acknowledge that he exists. So I might honestly even move him like down to the bottom of this tier next month. But we'll see. While on the other hand is the single target version of Red Hood, in the sense that he's very strong on Killer Tank and Drowned, and then sucks everywhere else. So yeah, if you have those 2 specific days of CC that you need, so if you struggle on Merciless and Dawnbreaker, pick up Red Hood. If you struggle on Killer Tank and Dawnbreaker, or Killer Tank and Drowned, pick up Wally, is kind of the 2 use cases for them, and then they're not really going to do a whole ton outside of that. They can do things. Let me not, get crucified for saying that Wally can't do anything, but, like, he's just not going to come even close to the value of, like, a Nightwing, or a Sinestro, or even a Constantine, or a Joker. Like, he's not close. I don't care. He's not close. And then lastly, we have kind of the flip side. We have Raish and Deathstroke. These are just the PvP versions of Wally and Red Hood, in the sense that they are just very good at PvP things and very mediocre at PvE things. Deathstroke's like okay at PvE things now with the new CC changes. He can do okay on the days that Wally does good on, but having no boost days at all kind of hurts him. And Raish is just maybe one of the worst PvE units in the game outside of Training Sim, but yeah, he's just gonna get deleted by a CC boss because his whole gimmick is do 20 million damage with an ult, one-shot somebody in the back line, and then die, and then maybe clinch the 1v1 at the end. So, I definitely think Raish will be better than a lot of people are expecting when he eventually comes, but I still just don't think he's worth summoning on Faya's person. He's a very high investment character, for sure. So yeah. That's going to get our luxury bleeds out of the way. These are just, you have extra resources, you need your specific niche field, you need your backline killer, you need your LOD comp finished, you need your Drowned or Killer Tank score higher, and you need your Dawnbreaker or Merciless score higher. That's kind of the reasoning behind those placements. And lastly, we can just bang the skips out of the way. Pretty straightforward. These are definitely the 3 worst characters, the 3 worst bleed units in the game. Talia just gets outclassed by Supergirl for an AoE dealer, gets outclassed as Deathstroke for an AoE assassin, gets outclassed just in general as an assassin by Nightwing. Not good, but if you really want to build her and you don't have Supergirl or you don't want to build Red Hood, she can maybe kind of do something on the AoE physical CC days. But she's just really not worth. Superman, first bleed in the game, kind of makes sense that he's this down in the shitter. But, he needs a ton of investment to be like, okay, because you need to get that solar recovery suit, and then you need to get it invested in, and then it's like, blah, 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 like, whatever. He's not good, dead weight to both of his teams, and really just gets outclassed in his niche of being single target, physical damage frontliner. Lastly, Scarecrow, I'm sure you've heard ad nauseum about how this guy has been just completely gutted. Just bad. If you're going to put him in AMW, just use Bane, because you shouldn't be summoning on Scarecrow until you've already built Joker, Riddler, Freeze. And if you've built Joker, Riddler, Freeze, your Bane is a high star, so there's no point. If you want to build Lod, you kind of need him, but you also have to invest in his legacy piece, and there's just kind of no reason investing in his legacy piece until you've already completed Sinestro Ring. So he's just kind of in a weird spot. He's just not very good. He's like okay on Lod, but he's just okay. He's just okay, and that's unfortunately not good enough to just be worth summoning on for somebody who needs to get as much value out of their anvils as possible. So yeah, that's going to do it for all the characters that are released for everyone and that we know everyone will eventually get. The last 2 are the 2 new bleeds in 446 to 448. Might even be up to 449 now. There's a chance these guys aren't even bleeds for everyone else. They might just be ascensions like Legendary to Mythics were, but we don't know for sure. So I figured for now I'd just throw them in here because it could also help the people in the 440s that need this. But yeah, let's just move on to the last tier. We have Flash and Batman, the 2 newest Mythic Plus units. I think Flash very well might be... Mythic Plus Flash might be one of... He's easily top 2. Dare I even say there are scenarios where he's just straight up better than Zatanna. He can buff healers while also buffing your damage dealer, which is something Zatanna can't do at the moment. The only limiting thing is that his most of his kit, other than just the small attack buff that he gets for just existing, is single target, and it's going to go on your highest attack unit. So like Zatanna can hit everyone if you're running a multi DPS comp. If you're running a multi DPS comp, most of Flash's value is going to go into one unit, so I think he's definitely going to be better than Superboy, just in terms of universal value. And I think he might challenge Zatanna. I don't know if I definitely can't confidently say he beats Zatanna. But I would be shocked if he doesn't, at the very least, put Zatanna in question as best universal buffer in the game. So yeah, Flash got a very good rework, and then on the other side, Batman got a horrible rework because he didn't get a rework. His Mythic Plus kit is the exact same as his Mythic kit, and then he got a really, really bad Legacy piece. It just gives him like dodge per crit rate, and then a second mini ult that does less damage than his ult. Like he just sucks. He's just AoE Superman. He might be a little better because his damage numbers are gonna be a little higher because he's gonna have a little more damage than Superman, but a little less way less tankiness than Superman. Yeah, he still drops aggro for whatever reason. My frontliner who just lets my backline get nuked by a Sinestro, like optimal. He's just in a rough spot and he's just not very good. I don't think this rework saved him, and I think if he ever comes as a bleed to any server that's not 446 plus, just skip him. He's not gonna give you any value. If you need an AoE dealer, just get Supergirl. Supergirl's gonna clear. Supergirl's gonna demolish this guy. I would say even Night Fight Red Hood probably clears this guy. But yeah, so Batman kind of sucks. I'll probably move him into skip tier. Or, well, he's definitely saying skip. He's definitely going into skip tier. But if he becomes a bleed that everyone can summon on. And if not, now you know not to invest in trying to rush to star up your Batman. But I would kind of rush to start up that Flash, because Mythic plus Flash is very nice, very nice, very nice. So yeah, that was kind of a, the Cliff Notes version of the last video I put out. If you want a more in-depth, I go over everything a little bit more in my other video that is posted right before this. It should just be the same, pretty much the same. It's just gonna say like extended cut or something. So yeah, that's gonna wrap it up here. That's all I had to say. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys kind of liked the longer and shorter style videos. I'll keep an eye on which one kind of does better, and I'll keep that in mind going forward. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and of course, good luck summoning. And if you don't agree, I'd love to hear in the comments. Only one I will not budge on, I don't care, is Wally. I've heard every possible defense of Wally, and you're not convincing me. So convince me on anyone else, and I'll listen. But Wally is not moving. Wally is right where he belongs. Wally is home. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Again, let me know what you thought, and I will catch you guys next time.